45-ton ship was propelled by 170 oarsmen, arranged in 3 tiers, one above the other. The crew were not galley slaves, but freeborn citizens, highly trained and highly skilled. The trireme could move at about 9 knots. Its only weapon was a bronze ram mounted on the waterline. The aim was to outmaneuver the enemy ship and then collide with it and sink it. Only one ram has ever been found. It was recovered from the seabed off the coast of Israel. In the 5th century BC, it was the principal instrument of power in the Eastern Mediterranean. In 1942, Spitfires were assembled at the British base on Gibraltar. The rock commands the narrow entrance to the Mediterranean, and the encircled sea was at the center of a global conflict. General Eisenhower directed the Allied landings in North Africa from headquarters deep inside the rock. The Phoenicians once controlled the straits from here. Then, after the Romans and the Goths, the Arabs held the rock for 700 years. They were finally dislodged by the Spanish, who lost it to the British, who are still here.
South of Europa called Gibraltar. This is Lloyd's.
The keynote these days is cooperation. Spanish customs boats are in constant pursuit of the common enemy, the smugglers who ferry drugs across the 9-mile strip of water separating Africa from Europe. On this occasion, a fishing boat is suspected. In the year 711, these straits were the scene of a massive cultural invasion. The forces of Islam passed this way and made Spain a Muslim country. The view of Africa from the southern extremity of Spain. The name of the straits in Arabic is Bab el-Zukak, the narrow gate. The momentous clashes between Moors and Christians are celebrated in Spain to this day. Dawn landings by the Moors are an annual event. The battle for the town of Alcoy, near Alicante, is re-fought each April with the Moors getting the best costumes and the best lines.
Si me entregas las llaves de esta vida, si le pones el loco desvarío de proclamar por rey injustamente a ese aragonés tan fementido, si al amar, Mahomad, mi estimado monarca, dais oídos, veréis luego lo fino de su pecho,
pero no seducido de promesas.
After a morning of heavy fighting, the Moors have captured the castle, but the Christians refuse to despair. Their patron saint and protector is St. George. The Battle of Alcoy ends as it did in the 13th century, with a victory for the Christians and St. George. Sicily, too, has been a theatre of war between Moors and Christians.
Luciero, non credevo affatto che in un castello abitato da pagane sorgesse tanta gentilezza, quanta cerimonia e quanta accoglienza. Ma adesso sono stanco, Luciero, sì, voglio riposarmi. Mi voglio liberare al più presto di questa pesante armatura e così mi voglio coricare. Ah, Luciero, come si sta bene in pigiama! Mi sento molto più leggero, più fresco. Adesso sì che posso andare a letto. Ma prima, come mia abitudine, voglio farmi il segno della croce. In nome del Padre, del Figliolo, dello Spirito Santo, Gesù mio diletto, benedice questo letto. Oh!
Roger's host is the treacherous Saracen Pinomonte.
Che dolore! Ruggero! Ahimè! Mi sento infatti, mio principe Pinamonte, mentre io dormivo, un forte dolore nel mio ventre. Forse è stato il cibo che ho mangiato.
Ma certo che ti fa male il pancino. Sappi che ti ho fatto mettere un potentissimo veleno nel cibo che hai consumato.
Come?
E adesso ti ha portato le pillole calmanti. Muori!
Rodito, via.
Alla malora. Avremo così un cane sul campo di battaglia in meno.
Ruggero, morto tu sei per il tuo triste destino. Ti faccio un sorriso e ti spargo i fiori sul tuo pallido viso. E l'anima tua sarà portata con Gesù nel celeste paradiso.
The story of Roger is a piece of Christian propaganda from the time of the Crusades. Pope Urban II launched the First Crusade in 1095, and for centuries thereafter, expeditions set off with papal blessing to drive the Muslims from the Holy Land for Christ. The walled citadel and town of Aigues-Mortes in the salty marshland of the Camargue was custom-built by the pious King Louis IX of France for the business of systematic crusading. After 2 centuries of struggle, during which Jerusalem was won and lost, and many atrocities were committed, the Crusaders were just managing to hold on to their last port in the Holy Land, the city of Acre. In the year 1291, the Mamluk Sultan Al-Ashraf Khalil attacked Acre for 40 days and nights. Fire, stones, and arrows rained down while his engineers undermined the foundations. Some Christians escaped from here to Cyprus. Untold numbers were killed or carried off into slavery. So ended Christian power in Palestine. In Constantinople, Christianity was violently divided against itself. The infamous Fourth Crusade found its way there, and the Roman Catholics from the West ended by sacking the birthplace of the Eastern Church. Murder, rape, plunder, and destruction were unleashed on this Christian city by Christians. According to an eyewitness, so much booty has never been gained in any city since the creation of the world. 250 years later, what was left of Constantinople was captured by the Ottoman Turks and turned into Istanbul. On the 27th of September 1988, the Turkish Navy gathered at the statue of its most famous admiral. We have come here today on the 450th anniversary of the naval victory at Preveza to commemorate Barbarossa Hayrettin Pasha, High Admiral of the fleet. Barbarossa began his career as a pirate and ended up as a national hero. After years of spectacular success operating as a freelance from bases in North Africa, he was summoned to Istanbul by his Sultan and called upon to command the navy of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman fleet, rebuilt and re-equipped, set out to dominate the whole Mediterranean. In 1538, off the west coast of Greece, near Preveza, Barbarossa achieved his most brilliant victory. His ships routed a much larger combined Christian fleet, which was commanded by his greatest rival, Andrea Doria from Genoa. For his Sultan, Suleiman the Magnificent, Barbarossa turned the Mediterranean into a Turkish lake. He died peacefully in 1546. In 1571, the Christians and the Turks met again at the Battle of Lepanto. This time, an allied Christian fleet of more than 200 ships beat an even larger Turkish force, which was no longer led by a naval genius. About 8,000 Christians and 25,000 Turks were killed in this battle, the last of the great actions fought between oared galleys. In spite of it, the Turks continued to dominate much of the Mediterranean. In the 19th century, the nationalities conquered by the Turks began to rebel. The Greeks took up arms against their Turkish masters in 1821. This annual service of thanksgiving takes place on the island of Hydra, at the statue of Andreas Miaoulis, the islander who became the Greek Navy's most fearsome admiral. The tiny island is immensely proud of its contribution to the fight against the Turks. The local mayor likes to compare the exploits of the Hydran ships with the heroism of the ancient Greeks who defeated the Persians at the Battle of Salamis. One particularly bold action, when a small band of heroes set fire to a Turkish fleet, is relived each year. A fishing boat is dressed up to represent the Turkish Navy. Local men play the part of the firebombers. 1829, after 8 years of fighting during which the Triple Alliance of Britain, France and Russia became involved on the side of the Greeks, independence was finally recognized by treaty. In 1915, the Turks dug in to defend the Dardanelles, the narrow strip of water linking the Mediterranean with the Black Sea. These straits have been a regular theatre of war since the Greeks came here to besiege Troy in about 1200 BC. When the Ottoman Empire entered the First World War on the side of Germany, the straits became a target for the Allies, who aimed to capture Istanbul and secure a supply route to Russia. 500,000 men from Great Britain, France, Australia and New Zealand landed on the Gallipoli Peninsula in an attempt to capture the commanding heights. Half those men became casualties. Victory in the end went to the Turkish troops under their commander Mustafa Kemal, who became known as Ataturk. A monument at Gallipoli carries Ataturk's message to the fallen soldiers of the foreign armies. To those heroes that shed their blood and lost their lives, you are now lying in the soil of a friendly country, therefore rest in peace. There is no difference between the Johnnies and the Mehmets to us where they lie side by side, here in this country of ours.